I built my own ChatGPT chatbot using Python. Here's how I did it. I've been working on this little project where I basically built my own ChatGPT inside a Jupyter notebook, and it's been a lot of fun. Instead of just treating ChatGPT as this mysterious page you type into, I wanted to break it down and see what it actually looks like when you wire it up yourself. Meaning sending raw messages to a model, keeping track of a conversation, and then shaping the way it talks so it feels like your assistant, your custom assistant. This is very close to what real companies do when they say they're building their own ChatGPT on top of their data. They don't reinvent the model from scratch. They take a strong base model, wrap it in their own logic, decide how to store its context, and then carefully design prompts and examples so it behaves in a way that fits their product. And that's the spirit of this notebook. We're going to be treating the model like an engine in the background, and then we'll build our own layer on top of it. We get to control how messages are packaged, how the history is stored, and how the voice is trained with a few examples, so we can flip it from a normal tutor to an old-timey professor, etc., just by changing a small prompt. It's still the same powerful model under the hood, but all the personality and behavior comes from the structure we build around it. Before we build anything, we need access to this powerful base model that we built our layer on top of. That's where the OpenAI API comes in. To get access to this API, first we're going to be opening our browser and then navigating to platform.openai.com. Once it loads, you'll be on a page that looks like this. I've already signed in, but if you haven't signed in, there should be a login or a sign up right here. Then navigate to the top left. Click on this drop down menu and then hit create project. You can call this whatever you want. I've already made one, so I won't be making one myself, but if you're following along, that's what you should do. Then navigate to it by clicking on it like so. Then go to dashboard, go to API keys, then hit create new secret key. Give your test key a short name and then put it to your associated project. We can call it something like Chatbot Simple and connect it to your project. Then hit create secret key. And then a window like this should pop up. Here, we copy it, and then this will be our API key. Copy this key and save it somewhere safe, for example, in a password manager or a local note. You won't be able to see the full key again later, and if you lose it, you can always create a new one. Don't ever share this key publicly or commit it to GitHub. Anyone with this key can spend your API credits. Another thing to note is that in order to run our chatbot, you need an API key that is tied to a billing account, and every request will burn a small amount of credit based on how much text you send and receive. So if you're following along, make sure you have billing set up, keep an eye on your usage dashboard, and treat this like running any other paid cloud service, and not like an unlimited toy. Now that we have our API key, let's get started with the code. At the top here, you can see our imports. We're going to be importing OS, so we can talk to the operating system and read the environment variables. Load_.env comes from the python-.env library, and it lets me load variables from the .env file that we've created. And then OpenAI is the client class from the OpenAI library that actually talks to the API. We'll call load_.env. This tells Python to look for a file called .env in this folder and then load anything in there into the environment. So we already have our OpenAI API key defined in the environment variable. So we'll retrieve it from the environment and set it to a variable called API key. I've also included a small safety check to make sure that our API key is actually defined in our .env file. Then we'll be creating our OpenAI client using the API key that we extracted from our environment. We'll run our code. Ran successfully. Before we go any further, I wanted to note that this is a paid API. You need a billing setup and some credits on your OpenAI account. Every message you send and every reply you get costs a small amount based on the number of tokens. So if you follow along, treat this like any other paid cloud service. Keep an eye on your usage dashboards and do not share your API key. In the next cell, I do a tiny test to make sure that this client actually works. I like starting with something simple before I build the whole chat layer on top. The key idea here is that I call client.chat.completions.create. This is the chat endpoint. Here I pass in a model name, GPT-4.1-mini, which is a smaller and more cost-effective version of GPT 4.1 that is still great for a chatbot like this. The second argument in our call is messages, which is a list of messages in the conversation. Each message has a role and some content. I put in a system message first that says, "You are a friendly assistant." That sets the tone of the chatbot. Then I add a user message that says it to say hello in one short sentence. And as we expected, it returned hello. Let's do something more fun now. I want to turn this from a single question into a real chat that remembers what we said before. This is what this cell does. At the top of the message, I set up a messages list, following the same logic from above. I define the initial conversation here. It starts with a single system message that gives the bot a role. It's a helpful, friendly study buddy that explains things clearly and tries to keep its answers fairly short. This is the default personality for the chatbot before I bring in any fancy tones later. I define a helper function called AskGPT. The purpose of this helper message is to send the current conversation plus a new user message to the model, and then we append the model's reply back into the conversation, then return the reply text. Inside the function, the first thing that I do is messages.append, and we pass in the role and the content. This appends the new user message to the conversation history, so the messages list always has the full chat so far, starting with the system prompt. Then, I call the API in the same way as before, except now I send the whole messages list instead of a tiny 2-message list. The model sees the system prompt, all previous user and assistant messages, and this new question. Once I get a response back, I grab the text, then I append that to the history as well. That way, the next time we call ask_GPT, the model will see its own earlier replies too. Finally, the function returns assistant_reply, so the caller can print it or use it however it wants. When I run this cell, I now have a global messages list and an ask_GPT function that know how to talk with a model and keep the conversation in sync. Next, I wanted a quick way to talk to the bot interactively, so in this cell I set up a simple loop. The first line prints a message to let me know that the chat is active. Then I have a while true loop, which means it will keep running until I manually break out. Inside the loop, I call input, which waits for me to type a message in the notebook output area, and then press enter. Then we'll trim the input and convert it to lowercase. If I type quit or exit, the loop prints a closing message and breaks, which ends the chat session. If I typed anything else, I call my helper, our ask_GPT helper function. That sends my message to the model, updates the history, and returns the assistant's text. I print that out nicely. So when I run this cell, it prints the chatbot is ready line, and then it waits for me to type messages over and over. It's not really a fancy interface, but in a notebook, it is enough to feel like a simple terminal chat. For the next few cells, I start having fun with personalities. The pattern is the same each time. I redefine the messages list with a different system message and example answer, and then I reuse the same loop pattern. For this specific cell, I've set it up so it does an old-timey tutor voice. I've defined the content. I've redefined messages with our prompts. So now the system message tells the model it speaks like an old-timey tutor from the 1800s, as it's supposed to be polite, formal, a bit wordy, and patient. Then I include a sample user question and a sample assistant answer about variables. This is my way of training the voice without any heavy fine-tuning. I show the model, when someone asks about a variable, this is the style of answer I want. Our chatbot here works exactly the same as before. We'll run it, and we can talk with it. We've asked it a couple questions, and you can see that our tone is accurately reflected in the chatbot's answers. For the next chatbot, I've trained it to talk like a caveman, so using short sentences and simple words. Finally, this chatbot here will talk in French. And that's our entire notebook. The main ideas here are to use environment variables and a client to talk to the OpenAI API. Then we maintain a messages list so the model sees the whole conversation, wrap the API call in an ask_GPT helper, redefine messages to swap personas, that being from normal tutor, old-timey tutor, caveman, and a French tutor, and then we use a simple loop to chat with each persona in turn. From here, you can keep layering on features, but this is the core pattern behind a lot of custom ChatGPT style bots. I hope this video was useful for you, and feel free to check out the GitHub repository that I've linked below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.